Matt, what's up, brother? Great to have you back on the podcast.
How you doing, man? Good to see you again.
I think I was thinking about it. I'm like, when's the last time I talked to you? And I think it was I sent you a text or a message, and we were joking about Black Rifle's place in San Antonio. You remember that? Where I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like, yeah,
yeah.
I'm staying here at this place. You're like, that place is creepy.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. I think, yeah, that place, if you're there with a group of friends,
Yeah,
it's
for
like
sure.
it's an adult playground. When you're
Yeah.
there by yourself and you never seen it in the daylight, creepiest place I've ever slept. It was
And you
wild.
said you said you got there like late at night, or it was like you and somebody, one other person, or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, so Sammy and I, so I mean, it was a whole long story, but yeah, so talking to Evan, one of the owners, and like every time I go to town, I stay at Matt's house.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't want to be you know, treating Matt's place like an Airbnb for myself. So I hit up Evan. I was like, hey, you mind if I crash with you for a couple of days? And he was like, yeah, yeah, come on out. He never told me that he moved to Utah. Like he didn't even live in Texas. And he
No, he's
was,
not. Yeah, right.
yeah, and so he was referring to this place like, oh yeah, you stay at our place, blah blah. And I'm like, all right. So I'm thinking I'm going to his house. And then he gave me the address, and one of his employees like, you can't send someone out there that's never been
It's
there
so
before.
hard
Like,
to get out there.
you need to go off-roading, you need to go through multiple gates. You're going to, if you think you're in the right place, you are not in the right place. Um, and so one of the employees met us at a grocery store, took us out there, and yeah, we got out there like 10 or 11 p.m. And it's like, for anyone listening, it's like a 40,000 square foot, basically like motel that like
Right.
froze in the 60s or 70s. And it was like the hunting camp for all the like original astronauts. So
The
there's pictures
NASA
of
guys.
like Buzz Aldrin on the wall, like
Right.
at this camp. And yeah, it smelt like it was the 70s. And yeah, it was a wild experience. And I remember staying there and being like, there's so many points of entry. Like,
Oh
and
yeah.
the guy who dropped us off was like, hey, and it's so safe. We don't lock any doors. Like, I'm like, dude, there's 104 doors. Like, this is the
No wonder you
start of
don't
a
lock any of them.
this is a start of a horror movie. Get me the fuck out of here. We Yeah, like the bathroom attached to our bedroom was like all mirrors. It was like in the 70s, it was hot. It was cool. But yeah, Sam and I we did that. And then I think the
That's
next morning
funny.
I hit up Matt and I was like, I'm coming
Can I
over.
come to your place? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. I went out there and they put in a 3 archery course for adaptive athletes, for
Yeah,
amputees
yeah.
and whatnot. Yeah. Did they have that when you were out there?
I think they were either starting it. I remember, so
Okay.
it was the next morning, one of my buddies that worked for Black Rifle came out like unannounced. And I just like happened to like be going outside because like they leave a Hummer and a four-wheeler there.
Right.
And he
Yep.
was like, hey, you know how to drive a Hummer, right? And I was like, no. And so I'm exploring the property. I'm going around on a four-wheeler and like stumble across some zebras. Like they're just zebras on the
Just
property. But when
chilling
I
on the
came back,
property.
my buddy Richard was there, and he brought out some guns. He's like, hey, you want to do some shooting? I was like, yeah, absolutely. And he brought out like his slow-mo camera, a 50 cal and a 20 millimeter. And so we just had an afternoon blasting
Sounds
away.
about right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shooting some videos of it at like a million frames a second. It was wild.
Yeah. Those guys are crazy, man. I love them to death. We've had some good times out there, but it is always a wild time when you're hanging out with the Black Rifle guys, for
Yeah, you
sure.
don't know what's
No,
coming.
it's gonna be
Yeah,
good. You just don't know what it's
last
gonna be.
last time I was with them, Evan hit me up and was like, "Hey, do you want to come down to Tampa and do offshore boat racing?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And then like he gave me some of the details, and something like gave me the inclination that like, does he think I have a background in racing? And I said to him, I was like, hey, I've never raced a boat, right? And he was like, oh, I'm fucking well aware. He's like, this is going to be wild. And it was a straight up like the boats that you see on TV, like a 40-foot
Yeah.
cigar boat, where it's like the windshield is 8 inches.
Yep.
You have like this like 600 cubic inch motor. You're in a 5-point harness, a helmet with a scuba regulator in case you crash. And we raced. like aggressively, top
That's
speed,
wild.
fully, fully ready and like prepare of like, you can't give someone with this little amount of training or experience this type of responsibility. And it was great, like
Wait,
93
did you
miles an
drive the
hour.
boat?
Yeah,
Oh,
it
dang.
was terrifying.
Oh, I bet.
And it was like type of thing, like you're in a 5 point harness, and if the boat flips, you have to wait until it sinks to get out because it's an escape hatch
The
up top.
pressure,
So you need
right?
you need to wait until everything equalizes. So you need to
Right.
wait
That's
until your
right.
cab fills up with water before you can open the hatch. So if you flip, you need to throw in a scuba regulator. And like something as simple as
Dang.
like starting out planing out, like 3 2 1 go, and you floor it, and then it just like as soon as the nose lifts up like 6 inches, you can't see over it. And
Right.
so you
Because of that
just point
windshield.
into you just point into a direction that you don't think anyone is, you floor it, and it takes like 30 40 seconds for it to
The
plane out.
plane
And then
out. Really?
so by the time you see where you're going, you're doing 90 miles an hour plus, you're in full chop, and like you're going airborne, and then you have to take a turn. And I'm driving, and then my throttleman is like, there's pylons out in the middle of the ocean. That's your racetrack. And he's like, hit the fucking pylon. I'm like, no.
Oh my gosh. What is the throttle man is he controlling the speed of it? Is that what he's doing?
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
steering
So
basically?
all you do is steer, and he
Oh, got
runs the
it.
throttle. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. So it was a whole Black Rifle team. So like Evan was one of the drivers, Marcus Luttrell was on the team, and then there's another SEAL guy, and then myself. And it was like, it's already the sketchiest thing that you can do. And then I think it was Marcus drove right before me, and when he came in, they were like, hey, the transom's blowing. So they had to like hoist the boat out of the water, replace the transom, and then plop it back in. And then before I get in, they go, hey, so we had to find a replacement transom from somebody else.
Right. Right.
Um, it's not the same one that we had before. This one is an inch shallower. And so they're like, your top speed's going to increase 5 miles an hour, and it's going to be way wobblier. And already
Great. Perfect. That's
it's
exactly what I wanted.
already the scariest thing, like how wobbly this boat is at top speed, going in a straight line. And now I'm like, now it's faster and more unstable. Fantastic. And yeah, in my first or second lap, I went airborne and twisted in the air. And when I landed, I blew out the power steering pump, and
Oh.
then finished off the race. It was wild.
Did anybody crash while you were out there?
No, I think I was the closest one to crashing, because I
That's
started
nuts,
like,
man.
I don't even know what you call it, but like the boat started like walking, and so
Mm.
like it would boom, 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 and just got more and more drastic. And my throttleman didn't say anything, so I was like, all right, that's normal.
This is
And
normal.
then
Yeah. How
and
would
then
you
it
know?
happened again, and I'm like, oh, we're going to like disintegrate the boat. And then I asked my throttle, I'm like, yo, like, what do I do? And like, do I steer into it? Do I steer out of it? And he's like, oh yeah, you can steer into it. Like, why didn't you say that the first time? Like, it was
That's
like the
wild.
fact that we were left unsupervised with these boats was just crazy.
Did you ever think you'd have like these incredible opportunities, to
Fuck no. Oh
yeah.
my God. Like so many, and there's so many things like this that I've have just kind of fallen into my lap, that in the moment, like Sam, like I'm always with Sammy when these things happen. And Sam
Hmm.
and I will just kind of look at it of like, how the fuck did we get here? Like,
Yeah.
how is this our life? Like, this was not supposed to be my reality. Um, like, and it obviously happens in little tiny progressions over time. So it's not like you just plopped in this new life. It's
Right.
little tiny bit by bit. But if I look at it objectively of like where I was 10 years ago versus what we're doing now, it's so opposite. Like 10 years ago, I worked a desk job in a cubicle in a suit doing contracts for the government for an
That's
aerospace company.
that alone is weird to
And
think of. I can't imagine you doing that. Like it just seems
right?
so foreign to me. I'm like, wait, what? Sitting behind a
Yeah,
desk?
right? Like, dude, and literally the reason I hated that job was because I had to wear a collared shirt. And I like at the time I was like finding a shirt that fits around my neck, that isn't like a balloon around my waist and arms, is not possible. It was just so uncomfortable all the time. It was just like slightly getting choked for 9 hours a day. Um, but I remember the first time Sam and I had that moment, we were in Australia and we were at a friend's like winter home, and it was on an island, and there was only, I think, 6 or 10 houses on this island. The island was 6 miles long, and we're there midweek, so nobody's there. And our buddy was like, oh, if we go to the south side of the island, we'll probably see some whales. They're
Mhm.
migrating right now.
Okay.
And so Sam and I walked there. On our way there, we saw a kangaroo. And it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then we plopped down on this beach, 6 miles long, not a soul in sight. There's
Nobody
no one else
there.
on this island. And then we're watching a mother and a baby whale breaching, just playing. And I remember sitting there with Sammy and like audibly saying the words like, how the fuck did we get here? Like, how is this
Yeah.
our life? How do we have these opportunities? And they they come up bit by bit, and so it's like they gradually get more and more extreme over time. Um, and I just try to do my best to make sure to say yes to them, as even things that like I know in the moment I'm not going to enjoy it. But I know it's going to make a damn good story down the road. So I'm like, dude, I'm in. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, look, well, I'll go back to something you said. You said, it just kind of fell on my lap, but I don't know if that entirely does it justice either. I mean, your mantra is hard work pays off, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think it's probably
absolutely.
just a manifestation, not just, I think it is a manifestation of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like once I look at it, like, the connections, and it's so much just about who getting connected with other like-minded people that, you know, work hard, they revolve their lives around it, they do what they have to do before they do the things that they want to do. But then when it's time to do some shit that you want to do, they take advantage of it.
Mm,
So once you get a group of friends like that, holy shit, it makes for a good but a dangerous time. So, like Evan asked me, like, hey, you want to race a boat? I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah. The whole time, like I remember being in the boat and thinking like, I just want this to end. Like I
I'm gonna
just
die. Yeah, for
like
sure.
I'm like I think when I did the boat race, I was like, I had either just announced my retirement or I was just about to. And I was like, this is like a perfectly terrible story of like, I worked hard all this time and, I just retired. I'm just about to start living out the fun years of my life. And like
Right.
something's going to go wrong and like, oh, fuck. But it's like, all right, let's have fun with this. Fingers crossed. I'll take every precaution I can to make sure that I'm safe. But like, let's get scared a little bit.
Yeah, and I think safe within reason too, right? Like everybody, it seems like more and more people are so concerned with being safe that they won't go do anything. They won't live their life at all, and that's a problem.
Well, who was it? They said a quote that I related to very, very, like I was like, oh, that put my thoughts into words, and I didn't know the
Mhm.
right combination of words. But it, fuck, I don't remember his name, but he was saying like for kids to do dangerous things carefully. Like
Oh,
that's
yeah,
how you
probably Jordan
learn.
Peterson probably
That,
said
that
it.
that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Like I like a lot of the stuff he says of like this is how kids learn. Do dangerous things carefully. Like think them
Right.
through, have supervision, take what precautions you can. But I'm like I look back at my childhood and I'm like, oh my God, I was fucking reckless. But it's like you don't just jump into doing something dangerous. Like you take the steps all the way up to it. And like, so like with the boat race, just because it's like the one example that we're going off right now, is like before we got in the boat, we had to do a dunk tank. So you're in a simulated cockpit that they dunk and flip over,
Oh, and
and
they
you have
show
to
you how to do
practice.
it.
Go through the steps, the order of operation of like pull the regulator, clear the regulator, start breathing through that, break apart your 5-point harness, grab the hatch, coordinate with your partner who goes out the hatch first, like, and a lot of guys were just like not paying attention. They didn't care. They're like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, no, this is a
Oh.
very, very real possibility. I have no idea what I'm doing with this boat. Like I've driven boats, but not a 40-foot cigar boat going 90. And so I was like really, really practicing and paying attention, watching other people get out and like So I'm going to do dangerous shit, but I'm going to like try to educate myself as much as possible so I can mitigate as much damage as possible if the worst comes.
No, I think you're dead on with that. It's, I can't remember the quote right offhand. You know, most people die, they live till they're 70, but die at 40 or whatever. They die much
Yeah.
earlier because they're not taking advantage of their life and going out and embracing these things. Do you ever worry, like to the level that you've accomplished in your life, do you ever worry that some of this stuff will shut off and that it will go away? Are there concerns and fears about opportunities that may present themselves, especially as your life
Like
changes over the
like
last
what
couple of
what will
years?
shut off? Like the opportunities or me actually
Yeah.
seizing the opportunities?
No, I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I imagine you're the kind of guy who always sees those as they come up. But I'm talking about just the opportunities in general and that things will just dry up.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that all the time. It's never really a concern for me. Um, like there's changes that I know like years ago, that changes that I knew were coming, and I was ready for them, or I was excited for them. And then even still, like I'm a fool to think that my life is going to be the exact same in 5 years. Like if my life is the exact same as it is right now in 5 years, I'll be pissed.
Mm,
Um, but even stuff as simple as traveling. When I first started competing, if there was an opportunity to travel somewhere, I took it. Like it didn't matter what day of the week, it didn't matter what time my flight was. I didn't fucking care. I'm like, this is an incredible opportunity and I'm going to take it. And so like I went through stretches where I was in school full time, and I would fly out midnight Thursday night. I would skip Friday of school. I'd have to bring all my books with me. I would compete, I would travel, do whatever, catch the red eye back Sunday night to Monday morning. And I would get picked up at the airport and dropped off on campus. And like,
mm,
I was miserable. I was dying inside because I was so tired. I was so like, everything was fucked. Um, but I wasn't willing to pass up that opportunity. Now I try to travel as little as possible. I'm like, no, I've built a life for myself. Um, that I didn't want to take vacations when I got old. Like
mm.
I don't want to have to look forward to my 2 week trip in Mexico every year. No, I want my I
Right.
want my time home to be so enjoyable that I never want to leave. And I was joking with a buddy about this the other day. Uh God, where were we? I I was down in Miami. There was competition going on, so I had a bunch of stuff, a lot of involvement there. And so I went down and I texted my buddy. And I knew his girlfriend was going to be there. I was like, hey, you coming? And he was like, no, no, like, I have so much travel coming up. I'm trying to spend as much time at home. And I texted him back and I was like, yep, being home is the new vacation. And like
Totally.
when my work requires me to travel so much, when I have so many people coming in and out of town to spend time with me, it's like, no, when I have a chance to stay home, that's my decompression. That's where I get to, like, I set up a home life that like I look forward to it. So the travel opportunities, like, they're there. But it's also changed that like I'm not reliant on somebody asking me, hey, come coach a seminar at my CrossFit gym. No, if I want to go down to Costa Rica, I can go. I have the freedom to
You
do
can do
that.
that.
um,
Sure.
but I'm sure it's only a matter of time before people stop asking me to do that stuff. And I planned on that. Like that was uh, I was trying to set up a life that I'm not trying to collect as much money as I can. I'm trying to collect as much freedom as I can. That I don't have to answer to anyone. I don't have to, my actions aren't determined by someone else's permission. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, I realized it was coming. I hoped it was coming. And I'm
It
prepared
sounds
for it.
like it.
But I'm sure opportunities are going to dry up at some point. Who knows? But at the same time, I hope I have less of an interest in that. Like I hope that the day I have a child, I'm not looking to run away for a week in Europe to do something crazy. It's like, no, I genuinely hope uh my priorities change a little bit when I go into that next stage of life. But who knows?
Yeah. No, it's cool. I mean, you sound super grounded in that. I bring that up because I sometimes look at people who are in the public eye, the public space. I mean, obviously, you know, you've got a lot of people who follow you, who know what you do or connected, they're inspired by you. And then I wonder with people in your shoes, you know, when that goes away, if they've built their whole identity around
Mm.
Instagram clicks or being acknowledged and validated by a bunch of strangers. Like I think about that with actors, you know, like at some point they're not going to do any more movies and then they're not really an actor. And so is there much more depth behind it? You know what I mean?
Oh, I've done so much of this, like this type of self-analysis.
Hmm.
Um, and surprisingly early on in my career, you know, like I came to like a fork in the road of like, you know, do I want to continue doing what I'm doing? How do I want to continue it if I choose, you know, all that type of stuff. And I've seen, I grew up with it, you know, through living at the training center, living at the Olympic Education Center, then getting into the sport of CrossFit, um, seeing people around that, uh, you know, their entire life's identity was in this one thing.
Right.
And you're a fool to think that as you get older, as time goes on, that you can continue performing at the level that you were. And so especially at the Olympic Training Center, I remember seeing just one too many um, former athletes still trying to make it, still trying to have one
Hmm.
more go or one more good competition, one more good match to go out on a bang, or you know, and they put so much of their life on hold to do that. And sometimes it works out. Sometimes there is the fairy tale story. Um,
Sure.
but I remember seeing one too many, you know, late 30s, early 40s, still trying to make it happen. And then, but they also set themselves up so they didn't have an option. You know, they put their education on hold. So now they're working some minimum wage job, taking one college
Hmm.
class a semester. And it's like, yep, by 50, I'll have my degree and then I can get a good job. And so,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
and then also my number one example of people going from a professional sports career into regular life is my parents. You know, like both, anyone doesn't know, like both my parents they were a pair in freestyle figure skating. I think they were four-time world champions, Olympic team members in 76. And so growing up, um, other than seeing my parents put a pair of skates on to play like pond hockey with all the cousins, I've never seen my parents skate. I've never seen them compete. I've never seen them coach, nothing.
Really?
Um, and you know, like through their teenage years and through all of their 20s, they toured the world. They went pro. They went to the Olympics. Big fucking deal.
Right.
Growing up, growing up, it was never really a topic. Um, like there was never any like figure skating pictures hanging around the house. There was never like too much talk, nothing, you know. And like we knew that they skated, and like I remember finding their trophies when I was probably 4 years old, like rifling through the basement. I thought I found treasure
Right.
because I found these like 3 foot tall big gold goblets, and I was like, oh my god, like I found treasure in my basement. um but it was like it was a very important thing to them in the moment. But then as soon as they decided like, okay, skating career is over, it's time to, my mom went to medical school, she became a physician, my dad was Mr. Mom, they had kids. um you know, they're obviously very, very proud and worked very, very hard for those accomplishments. But when they moved on, they're not hanging around a rink reminiscing about the glory days.
Hmm.
All the stories that I heard from my dad about his skating days were about the relationships, about the travel, the relationships, the time spent with my mom, all these things. Um, and so there was a couple parts of that. Like one, I remember being young and thinking like, how am I going to create those stories for myself?
Hmm.
How am I going to be able to give myself the opportunity to travel the world and make friends everywhere? And then two, how do I do that with my wife? Like I hope I meet my wife early enough that she can come with me on these things, because it was all those stories from my dad that, I, you know, I wanted those so badly for myself. But then, seeing that, like, okay, like it ends at some point. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so don't have your only identity as CrossFit Games champion or the best CrossFitter, whatever it was. Like even for myself, like right now, like I have the claim, the title to the fittest man in history. I'm the only dude that's won 5. Every year it's a coin flip if I get to keep that record or not.
Right.
And so like I have that title or that award for minimum 5 years. But after that, it's just a coin flip every year of either somebody's going to beat it or somebody doesn't. And so I better not put my whole identity into I'm the fittest man in history, because
Right.
what happens the day that somebody beats that record? Like, it's the whole goal. People getting better, the sport growing, more people coming into it. We want to see a new dominant force. Um, and so I better not be crying in my milk when the day comes. Like, I hope that when that day comes, I can be happy for the person. Because like I did what I did in my career. I took what I wanted. I did what I did. I got everything out of it that I wanted. And it's like, all right, cool. Like even just being the fittest man in the world, that's not my title anymore. I won it 5 times. I did it by the largest margin. I'm the first dude to do it 5 times. Like, there's a lot of things I'm proud of, but I
Sure.
was at the games, and when Justin won, so now he's the fittest man in history. I'm in the booth up top crying because I know, I'm so proud of this kid. I'm so happy for him. The opportunities he just opened up. This is phenomenal.
Hmm.
It's not for me. I stepped away from it. I don't want it anymore. So I'm looking for that life change. Um, but if my identity was being the fittest man on earth, that day would have been fucking bad. And
Yeah.
it's
That would have
inevitable.
crushed you. Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Is like it would have been bad and it's inevitable. It's not like it's not gonna
Yeah.
sometime happen. It will definitely happen at some point.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time. There's only 2 options every year at a competition. Either somebody's going to beat that record or somebody's not. And it's only a matter of
Mm-hmm.
time before the amount of coin flips that somebody does. And so, I'm excited to see who that is. Same as Justin. Like I've helped him in any way possible. I'm like, dude, if there's ever a question, like, I'm not trying to hinder your career. I want to try to better your career. Like, I got my like, if you win 6, it doesn't take away from my 5.
No
Makes no
way.
difference to
Of
me. I'm
course.
done. Like,
Just like yours
um,
doesn't take away from what Rich did for the sport.
it's exactly. And so, like Justin, it's like I was in contact with him as soon as my last games are done. I was like, anything I can help with, let me know.
Hmm.
He's been up to the house to train a couple times, like, um, it's because my personal identity isn't tied up in that. Like, there's so much more going on that I'm like, fact, go, like, someone else take the reins, do your thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm trying to grow it, because when I'm 60, people aren't going to give a shit who I am or what I do. So I'm trying to grow businesses outside so I have something to fall back on.
I mean, it's obviously a healthy way to approach it. What does retirement look like for you? Where your folks hung up the skates and didn't really talk much about it and moved on to different careers and different aspirations. Like, how much involvement will you have with CrossFit, and how much of your life will be centered around health and fitness as opposed to something entirely different?
So a lot more involved than I was expecting.
Hmm.
So even something as simple as programming. Um, when I did it, so I signed with a company, and like it's basically like I give them a spreadsheet of programming, and then they post it. So they handle
Okay.
everything on the back end. And I
Got it.
signed a 1-year contract with them, because I genuinely didn't know if I would like it or not.
Hmm.
Had nothing to do with anything else. I was like, if I hate this, if I hate programming, I've committed myself to 1 year. In the grand scheme of
And that's
things,
it. Sure.
nothing. So I'll do it for 1 year, and then I'll reevaluate after. And then almost immediately I was like, oh shit, I really enjoy this. And so I just doubled down on it. We opened up some more tracks because the original program we released, half or a quarter of the people like, this is not nearly enough volume. You talk to the other quarter of the people and they're like, this is so much fucking
Too
volume.
much.
And so I'm like, okay, like neither of you are wrong. You just have different opinions. And so then
different
expanding,
goals, right?
Exactly. And so like expanding, branching out, doing more tracks, taking on personal athletes that I'm coaching one-on-one, going to competitions, doing community workouts, all that type of stuff. Ended up loving it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to double down on this. We launched a supplement brand, Podium. That was type of thing. Like my last couple of years in the space, there just weren't any supplement sponsors that I like really clicked with or really enjoyed, or whatever it was. And so I went through the last couple of years of my career without a supplement sponsor, which is, it's a tough move for a competitive athlete, especially in the CrossFit space.
I bet.
And so I was just like, okay, like there's nothing out there that is what I want it to be. So fuck it, I'll make one. So, got some good partners that, we're each experts in our own little avenue. And so, that blew up. It's been a huge success. So we got programming, coaching, Podium, started getting into some real estate stuff. So in the last 6 months, picked up three income properties, three units that we're running. And like something like that's more of a long-term play. Obviously, like if you're in the rental game, it's not like crazy profitable. It's not profitable
not immediately
in the beginning, but it's not for today. It's for 15 to 30 years from now. So like when I'm older, hopefully I can thank myself and but looking to add to that a little bit year by year. But also with that, like the last duplex that we picked up, I went 50-50 with my buddy. And so, it's something that we can work on together. It's a project that we can work on. So it's like when we took possession of that, there was tenants on one side, not on the other. So he and I used it as an opportunity. We took 2 weeks and just like completely renovated the place. But it was, how lucky of an opportunity is it for me that my buddy and I are both in positions where we can put down a full down payment to get the lowest interest rate.
Right.
But then I get to work shoulder to shoulder with my best friend for 2 weeks, uninterrupted. Like he's self-employed, I'm self-employed. So if we want to take 2 weeks to work on a project, we can.
Do your thing. Sure.
And then it's just the two of us in this unit for a couple days at a time. Just again, to be goofballs with your best friend, and you're doing something that's productive and you're going to thank yourself down the road for, But yeah, doing that.
How's the book process been for you?
Dude, it was pretty wild. It was super, super intensive. And then like once I handed it off, it was like, it's out of my hands. And like you get update emails every once in a while of like, hey, this is where it's at with the publisher. This is going to print. Hey, it's delayed, all these different things. But yeah, the book came out and the feedback has been phenomenal. It was awesome. Literally one of those things that like, I don't want to say I have low self-esteem, but I'm like crazy critical of myself. And so like when the idea got pitched of like, hey, write a book, my first thought is like, who the fuck wants to hear me talk, about anything?
Yeah. Not about you necessarily. I get that about myself even. So
exactly. Yeah.
I hear what
like
you're
I'm just super critical of myself. And like, I never want to, think I'm important or think that anything. And so, when the idea got pitched, my first take was like, really? You want me to write a book? But then, and then like the crazy fear of like the worst nightmare of like, you launch it or it's like up for pre-sale and you find there's 2 copies sold. And then you look at the names
Nobody
and it's like your parents, and it's your parents' names or something. You're like, oh, fuck. But it went gangbusters. And it was so cool. People got their pre-orders right before Wadapalooza, so the big event down in Miami. So I set up set up like a book signing while I was there, and it's just like endless lines of people coming in, and like a lot of them, they're like, dude, I got the book like the day before I came down here. So for the 5-hour plane ride, I
You
just
just
read the entire
wolfed it
time.
down.
And you know, like depending on who you are, what your past experience is, or what you're looking for, everyone's going to get a different snippet of information or something that they apply into their own life. Because we covered so many topics in the book. You know, anything from like mindset when I was training, mindset when I was competing, how I approached it, and then even stuff like home life, food that Sammy prepared for me. So a bunch of Sammy's recipes are in the book. Different, like he interviewed different coaches that I had worked with over the years. So, you know, there's just such a wide variety of information that I'm excited to let a little more time pass, see what the demand is, like what part of it people were most interested in. And now that I've gone through the process once, I'm like, oh, I could fill, you know, 500 pages on
Oh,
any
I'm
one of
sure.
these topics. So I'm very excited
What
to
are
see
people most
what
interested in?
um the comments I've been getting a lot about are people didn't realize how much attention I paid to the little things, and
Mm.
little things that 99% of the time did not have an effect. But when
Like
they
what?
did
Like
have
give
an
me an
effect,
example.
so something as simple as, and I don't even think this went into the book, but like kind of an example was like remembering, like while I'm competing, remembering what ankle my chip timer's on, because there's a lot
Mm.
of times you get to the finish line and everyone's just focused on diving or getting across the finish line first. That
Got
doesn't
it.
fucking matter. It's your left ankle, like whose left ankle gets over the finish line first. So like at my last games, there was a foot race that Samuel Quant and I were neck and neck the entire way. And my last sprint to the finish line, I, I'm just saying left foot, left foot, left foot, left foot, and then we literally hit the finish line like at identical times. But he dove his right foot, I dove my left foot. So did
Oh,
it make a difference in the grand scheme? No, it didn't. Like, but if we were tight on points, that would be a deciding factor. I've had competitions where that type of stuff was a deciding factor. Little things like I don't even want to call them mind games, but like psychologically how different body language will affect your competitors when you're
hmm.
going. So like the one that was most prominent through my whole career was like the rubber band theory. And so if you're
Okay.
running in a pack, um, and you're immediately, if you're in second place and you're right behind first place, you're thinking, stay with him, stay with him, stay with him. Like just stay behind first place. Don't worry about anyone else. As soon as that first place guy breaks the rubber band, so he pulls far enough away that he's no longer like pulling you mentally, you're no longer concerned with stay close to him. You're worried about stay ahead of them. So
Hmm.
your attention just switched from first place to everyone else behind you. Like first place is now unobtainable. I'm going to let him go, and I'm going to concern myself with staying ahead of everyone else. And so
Got
I
it.
would look at the competition floor layout. So if we were outside and like you know, this came up a couple times, but the very prominent one was I think it was 2018, 2019, something, but it was like there was cuts on the, and we had a competition floor, and then we had to leave the stadium to do a running lap. And
Okay.
as soon as you left the stadium, it was a blind corner. And so, you know, another competitor and I were neck and neck the whole way. And like every run we would be together. And so on one of the last runs, when I left the stadium, I knew I was like 10 seconds or 15 seconds ahead of him. As soon as I turned the blind corner, I sprinted just like as hard as I could, knowing that like this is going to slow down my overall time. This is going to be a hindrance to me, but it's going to play a mental game with him. So that
Mentally. Yeah.
as soon as he comes around the corner, I'm looking over my shoulder to see when he reappears. And as soon as he does, I'm going to throttle way back. But that way, when he turns the blind corner and sees that I'm no longer 10 yards ahead, I'm 100, he's going to go, oh, fuck, he's on his own. Like I can't catch
Then he's
him.
into that rubber band theory about hanging
And
out
so
with the
then,
rest of the crew.
so that rubber band just broke. And now
Right.
he's no longer concerned about trying to win the workout. He's being concerned about holding on to second. And, you know, I did a lot of shit like that through my career, and I never said boo about it. And I let commentators for years and years think I was a dumb competitor or not
Yes.
approaching things
Why's he doing
correctly.
that? That's stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like criticizing strategy. And like another story that, you know, I heard and I related to it so well because like I couldn't figure out how to put the words together for it. But like the story of like this kid, like he gets bullied every day after school because they think he's so dumb. And the bully every day after school wants to show his friends how dumb this kid is. And so he holds out a dime and a nickel and goes, which one's worth more? And the kid picks up the nickel and goes, this one, it's bigger. And then he goes home. All the bullies are like, oh, look how dumb that kid is, blah, blah, blah. The kid gets home and his dad goes, hey, like, you know the dime's worth more, right? Like, why are you doing this? Like, tell them that you know the dime's worth more. And he goes, but if I tell them the dime's worth more, I won't get a nickel every day. And so like he knew that everyone thought he was dumb or picking on him or whatever it was. But he's like, no, I'm going to let you think I'm stupid. I'm going to keep taking your nickel every single day.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And so there's so much, every event that happened, like these commentators don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They're just filling void air. And so, you know, I would hear them talk about like how I made mistakes or this. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no, like, but I wouldn't publicly correct them because I'm like, no, let you think, let you continue this narrative that I'm making all these mistakes. I don't want people to know my intent of why I'm doing these things.
For sure. Yeah. How
And so,
did
you
you
know,
not let your ego get in the way in those instances though? Because I'm sure you contended with that. You were
oh
like, no, I want to prove these guys right, like wrong, but that would have undermined your strategy.
yeah, I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't.
Of
Like
course.
every once in a while, you know, the ego, the pride, they boil up. Um, I would. I don't think I ever publicly said anything, but like I've definitely had some phone calls or text messages that were, um, you know, correcting them. And
Right. Right.
um,
To put it mildly.
yeah, but broad strokes, and even still, like a lot of the stuff, you know, there's a lot of things that I hear about myself that float around, and you know, I like I'm at a point now where I can take the time and think like, do I want to correct this? Like, what's the silver lining of this narrative or this false information out there? Um, but I mean, for me, you know, I always try to find the silver lining in any situation. So, you know, if I hear the narrative of, uh, you know, oh, he hit that workout incorrectly, but I'm like, well, first off, I won the workout, so like, it couldn't have been too
It
bad.
wasn't that
Um,
incorrectly.
um, but I looked at it like, good, like the dumber you think I am, uh, like the less you're going to prepare to be my competition.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and you know, relating back a lot to what I set my goals up to be when I competed. And, you know, I know they were a lot different than most, but it was just like sticking to that and what my goals were of, you know, I want to win the games. I don't care about being known as, you know, competing frequently, so I'm in the public eye more and more. I don't care about people thinking I'm a nice guy when I'm at a competition. No, I'm here for one fucking task, and that's to win.
Mm.
And I only care about winning the games. Like that's it. So all these other little things, you know, just fuck them. Like whatever they say, let them say it. And you know, it definitely took a lot of practice. And you know, I have some role models in my life that were phenomenal at it. Where I would hear or see something, and I'm like, I'm buying a plane ticket and I'm going to their house right now. Like we are going to have
Really?
this conversation. I'm going to correct them because, you know, the typical like keyboard warriors saying something. I'm like, dude, I know who you are. Like, guarantee you wouldn't say that stuff if we were face to face.
No
But it's
doubt.
just
Of
like
course not.
there's this disconnect on online, Instagram, social, whatever it is, where people just like say some outrageous shit. because you can't get punched through a computer screen. And
that would
and
actually be a good invention for some people, is some
I
sort
know,
of like
right?
fist that just comes out and just shut the hell up and
Yeah.
just like punches them in the face.
And like they like, especially early on, I would get hot under the collar and
I bet.
just get upset over someone discrediting you or just saying like incredibly mean things. And my one of my best friends, Matt O'Keefe, he was so calm, cool, and collected, and just like basically like reinforced, like, go ahead, write the letter and then put it in a drawer. If you still feel that way in a week, then you can send it.
Hmm.
And just putting that into daily practice. And now it's like, dude, I don't get phased. I've had people do some of the most outrageous shit to intentionally try to like derail my career, hinder me, all these things. And I couldn't tell you the last time that it got to me. I was just like, okay, I see what you're doing. Like, that's a mistake, one. Um, because I know for myself, I'm like, oh, I have done way more off way less of a resentment, and you just lit a fire under my ass that like,
Hmm.
you go ahead, take your win today, but you just hurt yourself because you gave me a motivation to do even better.
Yeah.
It's
Do
just
you
like,
use that a lot? Do you use that as that I don't know if you'd call it a negative factor or the
I
criticism
mean,
or
we talked about this last time of
we
like
did. Yeah,
resentment is a good fuel, but it is a
for
hot burning
sure.
fuel.
Yeah,
um
good point. I remember that now you say that.
yeah. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't use it. I mean, perfect example is like when I launched programming. um a lot of people were very excited for it. It was a big step for me. It was stuff that I played so close to my chest for so long. um and then I remember seeing people that like people that I knew, like basically trashing it, of like they hadn't seen the programming, but they're they're saying like, hey, just remember, like, he was an athlete, he wasn't a coach, he doesn't have the knowledge base behind this of how to coach, like all these things. and and I remember the one guy that did it. um he was saying, he's like, I've had a bunch of my clients come to me with these, talking about this. And he basically just went like created this narrative of why I wouldn't be a good coach.
Hmm.
And and I had to step back and look at it objectively, of like, because I take criticism as coaching, of like, okay, let's see if it's really bothering me. There's probably some truth to it. That's probably why it's bothering me. And so let's look at, all right, what's the truth that is bothering me? And is it justified? Can I fix it? Can I work on it? Can I be better? Like all these things. And 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 I had to look at it, take emotion out of it. And I was like, okay, one, he's probably upset that his clients are coming to him talking about another program, and he's
No
worried
doubt.
about losing his clients. Um, and then two, like he's projecting that I'm just some dumb lug that was just naturally gifted at what I did, so I had
Hmm.
instant success without having to try for it. Which couldn't be further from the truth. Like it took me a long time. It took me probably longer than most to learn a lot of things in this space. And so I look at that, I'm like, no, that makes me a better coach. Like I never had one problem, tried one thing, and then got the result I wanted. I had a problem and I had to try 20 different things and then found one that worked. But now I have this whole background of, okay, someone's having trouble with a muscle up. All right, try this. All right, that didn't work. Try this. That didn't work. Try that. Like, so I have this whole arsenal of tools to attack these different problems. Um, but I remember screenshotting. I remember this guy went on a social media campaign, screenshotted it, and I sent it to O'Keefe, and I was like, you believe this shit? Like, I was like, dude, I haven't even released programming yet, and I'm already getting criticized on it. Like, how?
Yeah.
And O'Keefe was like, oh, he's just insecure. Like, and I was like, okay, true. Okay, I see that now. And then O'Keefe goes, you know who that is, right? Like, you know him. I was like, oh shit, I
Like,
do
wait,
know
what?
him.
Yeah.
And so it was, I'm buddies with this guy's brother. And so uh I sent my buddy a message, and I was like, hey, tell your brother thank you, because like I've never succeeded at anything without a good resentment, and your brother just made that for me. And he chuckled, and he said, he's like, dude, I'm sitting across my brother. Like, he
Oh,
said
he's
he's
right there with
sorry.
him.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, of course. Like, on social media, once again, there's no
Of course, it's
repercussions. No one
different.
can say anything. And then as soon as there was a contact, like a direct contact between like his brother, he was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, nope, too late. But like, that's fine. But I found the silver lining of it, of like, okay, I'm sure a lot of people have that truth. What can I do to A, make sure that's not the truth, B, make sure that people know,
Right.
and then
Address
like,
it.
and it's holding myself even more accountable, because I want to make sure that that never comes up, that somebody just says like, oh, you don't know how to coach, you just were good at it. And it's like, no, that's opposite, other way around, bud. But
Hmm.
yeah, find it like taking those criticisms and like, okay, let's use this as coaching cues. Let's see what they're saying I'm bad at, and how do I make sure I'm not bad at those things.
I like that, man, because I know even for myself personally, I get criticism like anybody else who puts themselves out there would. And it's really easy just to say, oh, that guy's an idiot and he doesn't know what he's talking about. But then you kind of, if you think about it for a minute, I mean, he can still be an idiot. That actually can still be true.
Yeah,
But it can also be true that maybe he got something right and there's some truth in there you need to really unpack if you can get
yeah,
over your ego long enough to do it.
yeah. And I think too, there's if you never want to be criticized, do nothing. Like,
Right.
do fucking nothing, never be heard, never be seen. It does not matter what you do. If you start walking with your left foot first, there will be someone that swears that right foot first is the only way to do it.
Hmm.
Um, like, you're going to get criticized no matter what you do. Um, and then I think too, like, some of the greatest minds in the space said some stuff and then got proved wrong, and then they learned from it. And it's like,
Right.
okay, like, I'm yeah, I look at stuff I did. I'm like, oh, I've been wrong so many times, but it's only a bad thing if you don't learn from that experience. I've trained certain ways and then thought I was doing great and then had terrible results. I was like, oh, that ain't it. Let me try again.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but I use people's criticisms like basically as like watching game tape, and I now have 10,000 sets of eyes telling me what I can do better. And there's going to be some that I'm like, no, you're just wrong. Like, I'm going to ignore that. But then being brutally honest with myself of like, when someone's like, oh, he was slow back to the bar, he sucks at barbell cycling, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that was a weakness. Maybe there's something to that. And then like
Mm.
looking at it from that point of view, and using other people's criticisms as notes on how to get better, or things to get better at. Um, and, and it was kind of funny. Like, the idea that you're going to be perfect is so crazy. And I
Right.
know
Of
it's like,
course.
I know for myself, it's always strive for perfection. You're always striving for it, but never reaching it. And even that, like, it sets up this narrative that like you're going to be right 95% of the time and then have a little blunder here and there. Fuck no. You are going to mess up so many times. And do you know oh god, Brian Callen, the
Yeah, I
comedian?
just released a podcast with him. As of this recording, it goes out tomorrow. So
Oh, no
if,
shit.
if, if if guys are listening to this, it came out last week. I just went down to LA and talked with him.
Oh, no way. So my buddies just did a video with him.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and they did a CrossFit workout with him. They had met him through some other mutual friends a couple
He's
months back,
awesome.
and then
Yeah,
they
he's
linked up with
awesome.
him again, and they were like, dude, he's one of the coolest guys.
He is.
Um, but so I watched their YouTube video. It was the Buttery Bros. So Marston and Heber did
Okay.
Fran with him, and I literally called Marston and I was like, hey, can you chop out this one piece of the video for me? Like, I love that, and I want it on my phone so I can watch it whenever I want it. And he was talking about, he goes, like, he's been doing stand up for 25 years, and he's like,
Right.
he's like, I've been famous. He's been famous for a little while, but not 25 years. And he goes, my best analogy for it is, if if I threw a stone at every bird I'd ever seen in the sky, I've probably hit a couple. And he goes, and if I took those birds, got them stuffed and hung them on my wall, I would probably have 100 birds. And like the birds are like analogies for like an opportunity.
Right.
And he goes, if somebody walks into my house and sees 100 birds and I tell them like I hit them out of the sky with a stone, they'd be, holy shit. Like
Right.
you must be amazing at throwing stones. And he goes, yeah, I'm awesome at throwing stones. And he goes, and they like, what's your secret? How'd you do it? And he goes, I threw a stone at every bird I've seen for the last 25 years. And it's like, when you look at it in that perspective, like, oh, you've hit this tiny little sliver of the percentages. But when you look at it objectively, like not in the process, but just like in the moment, how many of those opportunities have you seen? And it's like this wall of achievements. You know, it's the same as me of like, if somebody looks at my last year objectively, and it's like, holy shit, you're killing it. You're doing all these cool things. Like you released a book, you're making a movie, you moved like to your dream house, you bought 3 income properties, you launched HWPO training, you're taking on these athletes. It's crazy what you see on paper. On a day-to-day basis, I feel like I'm not doing shit because I'm like, it doesn't just come in these big lump sums. It's these little tiny things every single day that just add up to this cool end result. And yeah, so I mean, like, yeah, I was gonna say, like, I have that video of Brian on my phone.
That's cool. I'll have to watch that video.
And so Sam and I literally like just hanging around the house, like we'll be working on something that doesn't have a material end result, but it's hopefully we do like 1,000 times of that work and we will have something to show. We will have something as an end product. And like, we'll finish these little things that, you know, you work all day on, and then it's like this little tiny blip on a website or something. And I say to Sammy every day, and I'm like, yo, we're wicked fucking good at throwing stones. Like,
that's cool. I like that.
that's like our new motto around the house.
That's cool. Yeah. You know, the other challenge with that too is when people come into the house and they see all the birds on the wall, like you're talking about, and they think how good you are at throwing stones. I think what it does is it sets them up for failure, because when they go out and they try to throw 100 stones and they don't hit a single bird, they're like, I suck at this. And they throw in the towel. They're like, I'm not going to do that anymore. When all they really needed to know was that the people that, like yourself and other incredibly successful, talented men I've had on the podcast, they're not just inherently good at things. Like they're good at doing it long enough where they become exceptional.
Yeah. Like, I forget who it came from. I want to say it was a soccer player, but they said it took me 17 years, 6 months, and 3 days to become an overnight success.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, people see the game-winning NFL touchdown, the goal scored in the World Cup, or someone crossing the finish line. Like, wow, like they did it. Like, oh, I can never do that. And it's like, they didn't just show up and do that one day. And like, it's not even about a single training session. It's like nothing they're doing is unobtainable, but it's just like they're constantly pointing in that one direction. They're never taking a day where they're stepping backwards or they're putting things on pause. It's like continuously chipping away. And yeah, like I look at something as simple as like my whole CrossFit career. Like there was never one big defining moment of like, well, I mean, there was, but it wasn't what people think. You know, my big defining moment that led to my dominant career was fucking losing in front of everyone. And it was like a 10,000 person outdoor stadium that's iconic. The energy is wild. And I fucking failed. And you know, it was that moment of soaking it in, of seeing this whole crowd cheering for someone else, and like I'm this huge letdown. And it's like, okay, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Right.
My training didn't change drastically. Like my sleep schedule changed a little bit, my diet changed a little bit, my training changed a little bit, but like all these little things, and they just compounded. Like if and this is a big reason why I set up like almost daily goals. It's not like January 1, what's your goal this year? Well, my goal is to win the CrossFit Games. And
Mm-hmm.
then January 2nd comes and goes and says, hey, did you accomplish your goal today? No. Oh, you're a fucking loser. You didn't accomplish
Yeah.
your goal, like you failed. And that's literally how I looked at it. That's how I felt so often of like, what is my overarching goal? Well, if I'm looking at it, I want to have a family. I want to have my dream house. I want to have financial freedom. I want to be liked by, I want to have all the best friends, all the shit. Well, if I look at that every single day, well, every single day is going to be a failure because I don't have it yet. And it's like, oh, do you
Mm.
have it today? Nope, failure. And so that's why, like, going into every CrossFit season is, what's your goal? All right, well, my overarching goal is to do the best I can. I hope that means that I win the games. Um, but then breaking it down of like, all right, where am I right now, and where do I want to be in a year? What do I have? What and how many times can I break up that goal into these little tiny fucking baby steps um, to get me there? So every day I'm not laying my head on the pillow going, oh, I didn't accomplish my goal. I'm a failure. And it's like,
Right.
all right, well, I want to win the CrossFit Games. To do that, I need to shave 5 seconds off my 2K row. What did I do today to shave 5 seconds off my 2K row a year from now? Oh, I did 5,000 meters worth of rowing intervals. Oh, I want to shave 2 seconds off my mile time. Did I do that today? No. But you know what I did do? I took the steps to get there in a year. Um,
Does it ever feel like when you break it down like that, where, you want to shave 5 seconds, for example, and you're like, no, I didn't shave 5 seconds, but, I rode and I did X, Y, and Z. Do you ever get into moments where it's like, well, that's not enough? Like, and you get discouraged because it's not moving the needle as fast as you would like. And
of
maybe that
course, I,
causes you not to do it at all? Or
I,
what's your mentality in that?
yeah, I mean, I want everything yesterday. Like
Right. Of course. Right. Sure.
that's
High
not a,
achievers, of course.
yeah, I think that's everyone. I don't think there's anyone that's like, oh, I want to fulfill my dream in 10 years. I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Fair
no,
enough. Sure.
like, like something as simple as like some of the stuff I'm doing, like with real estate. It's like, no, I want to own like a lot of income properties. Like I like that type of work. I think it's a great play long term. That's what I want. Well, I can't just go out and just buy up every fucking thing on the market right now. Like, no, it's not a good business move. So I'm like, I'm picking at it slowly. And it's like, yeah, at some point I would love to have 50 units, 100 units, all paid in full. But it would be counterintuitive to do that, to do it all immediately, to pay them all off, do it that way. And it's like, no, like, all right, we're gonna buy 2 units a year for the next 10 years and see where it puts us.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and and I think a lot of this too comes like this is where the saying of trust the process comes from. But I think that term gets overused, and it's people just, you know, I don't even know what. I think it's used as an excuse not to like work hard today. I've just like, oh no, trust the process, like whatever I want,
It's
that it'll
working.
be
Sure.
it'll be there down the road. It's like, well,
Right.
no, you still have to work your fucking ass off for it.
I feel
Um,
that way when people say things like it's God's will. Like it'll have it's God if it's meant to be, it'll happen. I'm like, no, that's not actually how it works. Like you do have to work for it in order for it to happen.
yeah,
It's just not
like I'm
completely out of your hands.
I am not I am not a religious man. So like, but my interpretation of like that saying is like is it's not like God's going to make it happen for you. God's giving you
Right.
the ability to go work towards it.
Bingo.
That's my
Exactly.
interpretation. I am
That's mine
not
too.
I am not
And you and
religious
I are
at
right.
all.
How about
But
that?
but yeah, I think that's like, my biggest fear in life is wasting my potential. And like,
Hmm.
I'm in a phenomenal opportunity right now with where I'm at in life, where I'm at with everything. So it's like I'm going to try to fucking seize every little thing I can. And I'm in a great spot now where like when I was training, it's like I ran out of energy every day. Like I would finish at 6 p.m. and I'm just like a potato, just plopped on the couch. I don't have the energy to do anything. Now, do I run out of time every day? Like I have
Hmm.
all the energy in the world. You can send emails, make phone calls until the cows come home.
Right.
but now I'm running out of time. And so I just really try to make sure I'm not wasting it. Because
Yeah.
I don't want to be 60 and think of like, oh man, woulda, coulda, shoulda. It's always striving for those baby steps every single day. If you're hitting one of those steps, before you know it, you look back and you're, holy shit, I've come a long way.
Did you said something on Instagram the other day, you were talking about, I think you referenced like dry January, and you said something like, when you're 13 years sober, every January is dry. Did
Yeah.
you use, which I thought was really cool, that you talk about that stuff, because I think there's people who are dealing with some stuff that they need to figure out how, and they look at people like you and other people they admire, and they just assume they have it all figured out. But when somebody like you says, hey, no, this is something I was dealing with, it gives them hope. Did you use that same sort of strategy when it came to being sober, like getting like the chipping away at it, daily wins, that sort of thing?
Um, hmm. I don't know. Like I was pretty young when I got sober and quit drinking. So I was 17 when I quit drinking, and like I know I have a willpower. Like if I set my mind to something, it doesn't matter how miserable I am. It's never like I never give up because it's something's not enjoyable. It's like
Sure. Right.
and so like when I first got sober, I just white knuckled it. Like I didn't talk to anyone, I didn't get any help, I didn't use any resources. Um but I just knew like I don't like where my life is going, so I'm just going to halt it. Like I'm just going to
Hmm.
stop making the one thing that I know is a problem. And it's like with that too, it's like drinking isn't the for myself. I looked at like the reason drinking is the problem is it's the one thing that I do that has a negative reaction. Like I'm not just an alcoholic. I am a holic. Like everything
Hmm.
I do to excess. Um, so like when I did weightlifting, it was like my life revolved around it. I made it my full-time gig. I lived at the Olympic Training Center, trained 2-3 times a day, 6 days a week. When I went to school, I was like, I'm going for mechanical engineering. Oh, well, yeah, you can see him right here. I was like, if 1 degree is good, two is better. And
Hmm.
if 2 degrees is good, two minors is pretty cool too. So I did a double major, double minor in college. When I started competing in CrossFit, I went all fucking in. Like I made it my life. Nobody's coming to me and saying like, hey, you're a little bit too obsessed with school. You're doing it 7 days a week, and we're worried about you. Nobody's coming to me and going, hey, you're pursuing this Olympic dream a little too heavily. No one's coming to me and saying, hey, this CrossFit thing, I think you're investing a little bit too much, because the end result is something positive.
Sure.
Um, but with drinking, when I would get blackout drunk and try to fight someone and get arrested, people aren't so thrilled about those end results. And they're not so thrilled about me being obsessed about that thing. Um, so when it comes to me doing anything, I do nothing in moderation. Everything's in excess. When I get hooked on something, I'm like all in. I want to make
All
it
in.
my career. Um, and so early on, I realized like, all right, with being an alcoholic, it's a blessing and a curse. One, I can never drink normally. I can like, I've never once ever had a beer. It's like
Right.
if I have one, I'm like, oh,
You're having all of them.
we're going hard. Um, and so that's the downside. I can't drink normally. The upside, I have a fucking work ethic that is unmatched, untouched. Like
Hmm.
if I get obsessed with something, I have a work ethic and I am obsessive over these things. So let's try to find something that has a positive end result that I can put this addiction towards. And so like I didn't have phenomenal grades out of high school. I didn't get into college right away out of high school. Um, by the time I was done, I was at University of Vermont, which had an uh, incredible engineering department. When I applied to UVM, I didn't get in. I had to go to
Really?
a commute. Yeah, and my mom worked there. Like it's basically like if one
Oh,
of your
dang.
parents if one of your
You're
parents
in.
works at the college, you're supposed to just get in.
Oh, geez.
And I got denied admission. I had to go to community college for a year, then go to a lesser school. UVM was actually my fourth college. and it's a very, very top ranked college. And I did a double major, double minor. I was on the dean's list for like 3 years straight. And this is
Dang.
while I'm competing in CrossFit. Um, when it, you know, anything I do, when it comes to finances, learning how to invest, I seek out professionals, I read books, I watch videos, I'm taking notes, and then I'm trying to execute the best I can. Um, so I'm always trying to find things to get obsessive over and addicted over that have a positive end result. Whereas like, I'm like, okay, I don't drink. Once you change a couple people, places, and things, like, yeah, I'm not hanging out at parties. I'm not going to bars at night. So it's really a non-issue for me. Like it's something that I think about very, very rarely at this point. Um, but I realized very early on, like, oh, I have this incredibly addictive personality. Let's put this to use. Let's find the silver lining here and
Yeah.
and try to crush.
So you didn't change the personality as much as you changed just the behavior, the outlet, and directed it somewhere
Yeah,
else.
I mean, like I'm simplifying. Like getting sober. Like once I got linked up with people
Of
in a
course.
12-step program, I had a sponsor. I still am actively involved in the sober community. There was a lot more that went into it. It wasn't just like I got sober and I was like, oh, I can apply this to other things. It's like, no, there was a lot of hard times.
Hmm.
And there was like the big thing of like, all right, what was causing me to drink? Like, oh, I have some resentments that, are just whirling around in my head, and drinking makes them go away. So it's like, let's go make amends to everyone that I have a resentment against.
Wow.
Going
Yeah.
through the 12 steps in full. Um, it helps it helps your day to day. And even people that don't have a substance abuse problem, most of the steps are just applicable for living a good life. Like very few of them actually revolve around alcohol or drugs. Um, like one of them is like, when you're wrong, promptly admit it. And it's like,
Hmm.
think about how many resentments and arguments you have, or dislikes for somebody you have throughout the day because they did something, they were wrong, it affected you, and then they wouldn't say sorry. Like
Right.
that will
Right.
end a relationship. But how many times has somebody done something drastic, like somebody hit your car, and it's if they get out and they're like, you son of a bitch, you were like, you somewhere you weren't supposed to be, well, you're going to get defensive. And then if they get out and they're like, holy shit, I am so sorry, like I hit a patch of ice, odds are you're not going to be mad at them. It's the exact same result, but it's like the intent of going into it, of
Different
someone like
outcome.
coming at
Yeah.
you aggressively, putting the blame on you, or someone just being like, dude, I fucked up, I'm sorry. And so I really try. That's probably the biggest thing that I take on a day-to-day basis of like, oh, I'm wrong frequently. There's no way around it. Like I'm a human, and I'm dealing with situations I've never dealt with before, so I'm going to make mistakes. And so like when I do, don't let my pride, don't let my ego get in the way. Even if it's somebody that's employee and I'm their boss, it's telling them right away of like, man, I fucked that one up. I'm sorry. Like, how can I fix it? How can I make it better? And it's very rare that you make a mistake, you sincerely apologize, and someone's still mad at you. And it's all just on the intent of it. So, stuff like that, carrying that over into your day-to-day life is probably a good thing. Making a list of all the people you have resentments against and making amends to them. That's not a
Hmm.
bad life practice to have. And
Right.
you don't have to be involved in a 12-step program to do that. It's a good
To be
life
able to do
practice.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's powerful stuff, man. I always appreciate our conversations because we get into some real issues and some real things, man. This is all stuff people
I
need to
mean, who
hear.
who knows, like it's powerful stuff to me because it relates. I mean,
No,
somebody else maybe listen to this and be listen to this Yahoo.
no, not at, I mean, yeah, sure, you're gonna probably have a couple of guys who always, because that's the
Yeah,
nature of it.
yeah, you
But
have criticism no matter what you're doing.
yeah, but based on our last conversation and this one, man, I know this is really gonna serve the guys. So tell people where to connect with you. If you have anything new coming out, going on, obviously you've got the book. I got my copy right there.
There it is.
So guys need to pick up a copy of it. But what else? Where
Yeah,
else would you have them go if they want to learn more about what you're doing, man?
yeah. So the book, it's in online, Amazon. Pretty sure it's in Barnes and Noble as well. Um, I mean, for myself, the place I'm most active is just Instagram, and it's
Yeah.
at Matthew Fraz, MATHEWFRAS. uh, yeah, you know, we got some stuff going on that, you know, we're working towards right now. We can't announce anything right now because it's still in the early works,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
more stuff coming. Super excited. Like I'm just over here throwing stones every day, man, trying to hit
That's
a
right.
bird.
That's the biggest
But
takeaway from that. Hey, look, when you do come out with anything, whether it's new course program, you're talking about tracks with so is it HWPO app? Is that what it is for
yeah,
your
so
programming?
right now we're through the hybrid app. So
Oh, got it. Okay.
yeah, and so we have the HWPO. We've coined it the flagship, which is just like uh regular, like if you're looking to get better in your lifts, and like maybe doing like a weekend competition, the programming has, if you want to do everything in there, probably about an hour 45 to 2 hours worth of workout every day.
Hmm.
We have the HWPO 60, which is the same thing, all the big bang for the buck pieces, but it's set on time interval. So you're in and out of the gym, warm up, workout, weightlifting, cardio, all in 60 minutes. And then we have the pro track right now that is like you're training for the games. This is your full-time gig.
Got it.
You're all in. Yeah, so I mean we're looking at expanding, because we saw that there's enough of a demand. Like when I launched, I didn't know. I was like, people may not give a shit about what I think is a good workout plan. Ends up, uh, you know,
They
there's
do.
enough traction there that,
Right.
uh, you know, hiring on employees, trying to grow, trying to figure out what the demand is, and the best way to go about it too, so we don't have 100 different tracks that are confusing people. You know, we want very cut and dry. Like if these are your priorities, this is where you go. Um, so yeah, I mean, we're just always trying to grow, make it better. You know, still traveling a ton because we're doing community workouts at competitions, podiums at a lot of competitions. So uh, yeah, we're busy, but no, it's good.
I love it, man. Well, we'll sync it all up for the guys. And then anytime you have anything new or you want to make sure guys, people are aware of it, let me know, man. I got your back. So I'm in your
Absolutely.
corner,
Thank you
whatever I
so
need to do to
much.
support.
I'm
But thanks,
I'm
Matt. Appreciate you
blown
joining me,
away.
man.
Yeah, thank you so much.